Gavin Newsom is feeling the heat if mounting reports and quiet chatter are accurate right now.
I think it's been a tyranny of about 25 years of trying to get the refining business to leave California. They've been putting in regulations and bureaucracy and taxes and programs to push us out of the state.
California has spent years, really decades, going after the fossil fuel business in the name of environmentalism, and it's a lie. Saying it was planning the state a clean energy future when it was all a con.
Gavin Newsom is starting to feel real political and economic pressure. According to mounting reports and growing behind-the-scenes chatter, California's leadership is facing consequences long predicted but long ignored. For years, critics warned that aggressive regulations, high taxes, and ideological policymaking would eventually drive businesses away. Those warnings were dismissed as fear-mongering. Now, as corporations quietly signal plans to leave or scale back operations, the alarms that once went unheard are impossible to ignore.
And these politicians, they don't govern for results. They don't say, hey, what's worked really well in the past, and let's try to make it work really well here. In California, it's I need to govern for a narrative. I need there to be anything shoplifted under $1,000, we don't need to arrest you for that. We don't need cash bail. Okay, we don't need to arrest criminals. We want this green utopia. And like what happens with that is you go from 2%, you start at 13% of the U.S. oil production in the U.S., now we're down to 2%.
For decades, California has aggressively targeted the fossil fuel industry under the banner of environmentalism. Refineries were hit with layers of regulations, bureaucratic hurdles, and punitive taxes designed not to reform the industry, but to push it out entirely. Leaders claimed they were planning a clean energy future, yet critics argue the strategy was never realistic. Instead of replacing fossil fuels with scalable alternatives, California simply chased producers away while demand remained unchanged.
Gavin Newsom's state is having a sudden change of heart. The pompadour of pomposity himself just signed a bill to fast-track approvals for 2,000 new oil and gas wells annually. This is near Bakersfield, California. Kern County, trying to keep energy companies from fleeing California. It may be too little too late. And Newsom, and frankly, all the people in California who voted for him and all the other Democrats, they are getting what they deserve and what they voted for.
At one point, California produced nearly 13% of America's oil. That production helped fuel the national economy and provided thousands of high-paying jobs. Today, that number has collapsed to just 2%. This wasn't an accident or a market failure. It was the result of deliberate policy choices that prioritized ideology over energy reality. The decline stands as one of the clearest examples of how political decisions can dismantle an entire industry.
California has to import half of the crude that it's still able to refine in the state from places like Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and Brazil. And the CO2 emissions, the smog and pollution from the tankers that have to ship it in has caused emissions to go up and pollution to go up. So it's actually damaging human health in California because they've tried to phase out fossil fuels.
California's leadership doesn't govern for outcomes anymore. They govern for optics. Instead of asking what policies worked in the past and adapting them, politicians focus on narratives that sound compassionate or progressive. Shoplifting under $1,000 is often treated as a minor offense. Cash bail is eliminated. Criminal accountability is softened. All of it is framed as progress, yet the real-world results tell a very different story.
I lived in California for a long time, and I used to say, like, the crazy people in this country just keep moving west, and, like, it just stops in California because they'll fall in the ocean if they keep going any further. And, like, there couldn't be a truer statement in the world. And these politicians, they don't govern for results. They don't say, hey, what's worked really well in the past, and let's try to make it work really well here.
The consequences are becoming impossible to deny. Businesses are leaving California in search of lower taxes, predictable regulations, and basic economic stability. Entrepreneurs and workers alike are buckling under relentless costs and endless red tape. What was once a state defined by opportunity is now flirting with stagnation, and the longer leadership refuses to course correct, the harder recovery will become.
It is an unbelievable state. It is one of the most, if they not most beautiful state in the union. You have technology, you have Hollywood, you have amazing natural resources. Yet somehow, these lefties have found a way to almost completely ruin it.
And gas is expensive there because of all the regulations, all the rules about the blends. You're talking about the oil that they use to refine, that they have to bring it in, but then they want to make it, you know, cleaner than clean. It's not even, you know, something that you need to do. Our oil here in the United States is very clean. The technology is bringing us cleaner oil, but I don't feel bad for these politicians at all.
In a surprising move, Gavin Newsom recently signed legislation to fast-track approvals for 2,000 new oil and gas wells annually near Bakersfield. After years of hostility toward the industry, this sudden change of heart raises an obvious question. Why now? The answer appears simple. Companies were already leaving. The policy shift looks less like leadership and more like a last-minute attempt to stop the bleeding.
They get what they vote for, but I sort of feel for people in California because not everyone is voting for this, and so I'm reminded of our plight here in New York City, where we're not all voting for, you know, socialism to come and nip at our heels, but it's happening, and so how do you change it? I don't know.
California was a red state until there was a couple of judicial rulings in the 80s, and then Reagan's amnesty. The massive amounts of illegal immigration, and then the next generation's not illegal.
Right.
So you have imported a new population into the state over the last generation, and now it's the bluest of blue.
Newsom and Karen Bass have already proven their incompetence and poor leadership during the Los Angeles wildfires. Now, as we experience rampant lawlessness and civil unrest, it's never been more clear they're unable to respond effectively and responsibly during calamity. Whether it's sheer incompetence or outright malevolence, the reality is stark. California's in a state of turmoil, and I ask my fellow Angelenos, why are Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass still in office?
It's very frustrating because of the way the census is done. They don't get penalized. You have the numbers of people, the businesses and residents leaving California because of the high cost of living, because of crime in some of the cities, et cetera. And so their number of seats in Congress doesn't change. Their electoral college votes don't change. The aid from the federal government doesn't change. California has 2 billion barrels of oil in reserves. They could go after that. They've been refusing to do it, like New York refusing to do shale drilling, et cetera. These states have penalize themselves and their citizens by denying them $150,000 a year jobs, and also because price of gas is $4.65 instead of $3.20 around the
should not trust politicians to fix the problems that they created. Like, they're the wrong people. And I'm glad you brought up this flip-flop. So he says they're going to fast-track 2,000 wells. It reminds me of the fires in LA and all the fast-tracking that was supposed to happen for permits. I don't think that fast-tracking actually got on the fast track, because these guys, like, fundamentally are not interested in making fossil fuels more available. So if you trust the people who broke it to fix it, it will stay broke, only it will be more expensive for it to stay broke, which is what's happening in California.
Never underestimate, though, the power of political ambition and how that might drive Newsom and his ilk in that state to change their ways, because the legislation that was passed out of Sacramento, it's not only the drilling, but it also allows the governor to suspend requirements for the cleaner summer blends of gasoline to protect against extraordinary price spikes during that time of the year. They also will allow the consideration of importing gasoline blends from other states that don't comply with the very, very strict blends.